Yeah, good morning, everyone. Those who have joined and who are about to join.
Very good morning, Shashwate sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Time.
Good morning.
Chairman sir, with your permission, may I start?
Yeah, sure. Please start.
All right. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Namaste. Welcome to Mission Education 2021, an international conference on digital education and skilling. My name is Ketki Bhatia. I'll be your host for the day. I'm an AVP here at Trigen and very proud member of Trigen Digital Learning Team. Before we start the session, I am going to lay down certain rules and regulations for this virtual meeting, and I humbly request you all to follow that. Let's all try to maintain decorum of this session and be on mute at any given point. I'm sure you all will have questions and comments during the session. Feel free to post them in the chat window, and as and when we get an opportunity, they will be addressed by the moderator. We all know education has the power to impact the future of our children, communities, society, and the country, irrespective of our professional and personal inclinations. We at Trigen Technologies have a keen interest in the evolution of the Indian education system and are curious to understand and gain insights into various questions. Some of the questions that we have are, what does the education transformation in 2021 Digital First India look like? How can we leverage technology to strengthen the quality of education and facilitate innovative learning? How can we empower the youth of our country and steer them on the path to a successful and rewarding career? Today, in the esteemed presence of stellar voices from the academia and industry, we are hopeful to get answers to these questions and understand how India is reimagining its education and its future. I take this opportunity to welcome Chairman Sir Dr. Anil, Dr. Ashwini, our Trigen CEO and Director, Mr. Dilip Hanumara, and Mr. Anand Roop, the soul and brain behind Trigen's digital learning. Good morning and namaste. I would now like to also introduce Mr. Dilip. Mr. Dilip is a technology enthusiast and an expert himself. Dilip uses his vast resourceful background of future technology to accelerate Trigen's growth. He's passionate about education and is instrumental in creating Trigen's journey of digital learning. Dilip, without further ado, I pass on the baton to you to welcome the panelists and Chairman Sir as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ketki. I hope you can all hear me fine.
Yes, Dilip, thank you.
Honorable Chief Guest, Chairman Sir, members of the panel, my dear colleagues from across the world, it is with great pleasure and honor that I invite you all to this international conference on digital education and skilling. This conference is dedicated to ideas, and we have a great set of panelists from the government enablement body, AICTE, to practitioners from academia to the industry. Today, we live in the middle of a great transition. Never before in human history has so many systems are evolving and transitioning at the same time. Let's look at a few that touch each and every one of our lives. Our planet is transitioning. Our environment is changing rapidly as never before seen. Superpowers are transitioning. Countries and regions are changing rapidly. Migration from rural to urban, while has taken a hit in the last couple of years because of the pandemic, is set to pick up pace in the coming years. Demographics are changing across the world. The generation that has built the world after the World War II is transitioning, which is having a direct impact on priorities, preferences, and most importantly, on culture. The world is transitioning to digital at an unprecedented pace. The last couple of years of pandemic has accelerated this transition. Some of the bigger companies have declared that the change they expected in the coming 10 years They're seeing that within a year or two. Even at this nascent stage, digital has started to question the status quo. Let's take a look at what that means. It has been documented that when electricity was discovered, for the first 50 years, it's been used primarily for lighting the bulb. Today, we cannot imagine life without electricity. Digitalization or computing is a general purpose technology like electricity and will have an impact as far reaching as electricity, if not more. Every physical object, process, marketplace, activity will have a digital or virtual equivalent. Let's look at what happened over the last decade or so. A camera, which was a chemical reaction before, has been digital over the last decade. Currently, automobile and mobility is getting transitioned. Today, with the emergence of electric vehicles, mobility is no more a mechanical problem. It is a computation problem. Switching to another industry, look at the impact of Amazon, what it has done to the marketplaces. Look at the impact of social media. Social media today is the new city square. Any country that adapts itself to lead these great transitions, especially the digital, will reap rewards, both economic and cultural, for generations to come. India, with its thousands of years of wisdom documented and young demographics, and the last 25 years of information technology prowess has created companies and leaders that are leading the world today. The younger generation has taken note, and they no longer want to be trained for a job. Rather, they too want to take their ideas to the market and lead from the front. The Government of India and the Honorable Prime Minister has several times expressed their interest on leading this great transition and has started several initiatives, including NEP 2020, to lead from the front. We at Trigen are doing our part. For those of you who are new to Trigen, we are humbled to let you know that we delivered the technology platform that has delivered over 1 billion vaccinations today. CoWIN, the only platform that has more than 1 billion transactions a day and has delivered over 1 billion vaccinations, has been developed by Trigen with the complete support of Government of India. We have a great set of sessions coming up today. These sessions will focus on capturing our imagination, taking advantage of thousands of years of our culture and documented wisdom. India has always been a multicultural, multilingual country. And today, more than ever, we can reap tremendous benefits by continuing that culture and educating our folks across the country in their native languages. We have a great session coming up on how that could play out. The frameworks that have been put forward by the government using NEP 2020 and others will be discussed in details by a great set of panelists. The technology as an enabler for education at all levels is something that we all look forward to. India has a great tradition of education. You know, if we go back thousands of years, we had gurukuls that delivered the leaders to the society. At the same time, we had skilled workers that came out through apprenticeship from their families or extended families. Today, it's no different, except it's in a different mode. The great institutions, the academic institutions of India are churning out the leaders of the world. And at the same time, the skill universities, the institutes, the training institutes are delivering the skills that are required timely by the market. So these sessions, as I said, have panelists from the industry, from the academia, and of course the enablement, AICTE. Today, I'm honored to have Dr. Anil Sahasrabuddhiji, the chairman of AICTE, as our chief guest. Dr. Anilji is an ex-professor of mechanical engineering at IIT Guwahati. Joined AICTE as chairman in 2015. He has dedicated his life to education and has taken up several initiatives from academia to curricula to entrepreneurship, research, and governance. Dr. Anilji is also known as a change master, and he needs no introduction. He's also joined today by the Vice Chair, Dr. MP Punaya, Vice Chairman of AICTE. Dr. Punayaji possesses a vast experience of 30 years and has published over 80 research papers in national and international journals. With no wait, I would like to hand it over to Dr. Sahasrabuddhiji to address this gathering and also enlighten us with some of the ideas that he's been thinking about.
Yeah, thank you, Dilip ji. Good morning to all of you. Namaskar. Trigen Technologies, Ditya Reimagine, and all of you together on this platform today when we are discussing about what we call Mission Education 2021. The seeds were sown last year itself through the National Education Policy, which came into being on 29th of July 2020. Now it is more than a year, and many things have started getting implemented, some of them in the pipeline, some will take some time. But the essence is what education has to be. The title yourself, what you have mentioned is digital education and skilling. I think during the COVID time, when Trigen Technologies was the one which created the platform for COVID, and more than 100 crore vaccinations, 1 billion, have been administered through a platform, and that shows the power of technology. And the National Education Policy has all the ingredients for making not only technical education, but the education per se as holistic and one of the finest ones in anywhere in the globe. I think I'm probably overstating, but provided we implement it in the right perspective. The more important thing is implementation, because policy many times looks very beautiful and it is not meant for being kept in the almirahs or circulars, and that's what Prime Minister said on the first occasion on the 7th of August 2020. After 1 week of implementation, he said this particular sentence: नीति तो अच्छी हो सकती है, लेकिन जब तक रणनीति नहीं है, that is, there is no strategy for implementation, there is nowhere that we can go. And in the last 1 year, we have taken some baby steps. But I would like to go back in what Dilip was saying a little while ago, that India, with its cultural heritage of thousands of years, we had done everything that is required for becoming a very beautiful education policy. Maybe not written as policy, but it was being implemented. You rightly pointed out Gurukula system. A student at the age of 8 will go from home to the Guru's ashram and then live there for about 15 to 16 years till he gets skilled, he gets educated. And that's why education and skill were never separated. I don't think education can be separated from skill and skill can be separated from education. Although unfortunately, because something was missing, we started establishing universities, which are skill universities, which are general universities, which are specialized technical universities, medical universities. Education cannot have boundaries. It is boundaryless learning. And that is why education is one where all variety of disciplines are to be taught. Maybe from arts, commerce, science, whatever we call today in terms of general education, to professional education, whether it is engineering, pharmacy, architecture, medical, law, you name it, all of them should be integral part of a university system. Only then we can provide holistic education to our students. And while doing so, lot of emphasis on what we call hands-on work. Skilling is also important. And that's what makes you what we call as persons who will respect dignity of labor. In our system, which we has, in the ancient past, whatever was there, we forgot because of invasions, because of the British rule for a long time. And then we assumed that everything has come from the West. And that is a real tragedy. We had everything on the earth in terms of science. Not only we all know about zero in mathematics being invented in India, not just zero, including binomial theorem to many other things were innovated here, and then huge number of theorems which came in. That is the basis of mathematics to science. And then in terms of physics, in terms of astronomy, in terms of chemistry, in terms of material science and metallurgy, in terms of civil engineering, construction, architecture, I think maybe some of these domains like electronics and the computers did not exist. And certainly science, which moved on from India to the rest of the world, did marvelous research, and we got back some of these things like 4G, 5G. We probably used to send thought waves rather than sending it through the electronic means. But anyway, you have a heritage which is of 5,000, 10,000 years. And everything that we talk about today as holistic education and skilling together, I'm again referring to the what we say Gurukula system, which further later led to the Takshila, Nalanda and many other universities which were residential, large-scale universities. But look at the simple Gurukula where hardly maybe 25, 30, 50 students used to study at a given time with one guru and some other one or two, your tutors kind of a things. There is a chief guru and the other gurus, and they were training you in different skill sets. Even the household chores, fetching water or firewood from the forest, I think that requires skill. And unless you understand those, through hard, work ethics, values, you will not be able to learn. And therefore, after that, you will be required to do cooking, washing utensils. No work is mean. I think today when people go abroad for their masters and PhD, they say that we do our own cooking, we have to wash our own utensils. See, the West is so liberal that it gives prominence to all kind of people. There is a lot of equity in terms of they cannot afford there to have a driver. They have to drive their own vehicle. They will have to wash their own utensils. Otherwise, that may be more than the salary of the person itself. So this is what we claim. But in our own country, we were doing it. We forgot about it. I think that is why this new education policy has brought out all those values, ethics, what we call the honesty, integrity, morals back into the fore. And therefore, once this policy is implemented, we will have again rediscovering the glorious past. I think education is all about again discovery. Swami Vivekananda had often said, everyone is divine, and when one takes birth, there is some inherent quality. Each one's DNA will have something in that. From our parentage, we would have got something. But it is unfortunate that we don't recognize, don't realize, and therefore, through the pressure of the parents, relatives, friends, and because someone is doing something, we also get into the same. And then after a few years, we realize this is not my cup of tea. Yesterday itself, I was in a music concert, Carnatic music, and the person is a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, and he did master's in sound and music engineering from Europe, and then came back, and he is now full-fledged musician. He's that is his profession today. So I think people should realize what is their inherent strength early in the childhood itself. Then I think we can explore. So Swamiji had said rightly that the teacher's role is actually to identify, nurture, support, mentor, develop it further. And then each one of the individuals, we have 135 crore people, 65% of them youth, each has inherently wonderful qualities. Can we detect them? Can we identify them? Can we nurture them? Can we make them useful? I think then such children will not only get educated, they will be holistic, they will not only support themselves, their families, the society, nation, but also the whole world. We talk about sustainable development goals. We talk about United Nations has given this dictate. We had environment in our, psyche. All our practices, you call them religious practices, but they are actually social practices. Nothing to do with religion, actually. That is the philosophy which had, and therefore we gave importance to planting of the trees. We never cut them. We prayed them. They were like gods for us. And then they were providing us oxygen. They were providing us good quality air. And not only that, they also gave us fruits. They gave us everything that the humankind requires and desires. And therefore, I think people should not give lessons to us. We forgot, and therefore we have to again relearn is a different matter that has to be done. And this new education policy talks about that. So discovering oneself. And education is nothing but the same. Research is nothing but discovering something already exists in nature. No one is actually creating something. God or whoever it is, nature has given us bountiful in terms of several thousands, lakhs, crores of species, both of animals and plant variety. If you closely observe, everything and anything that today technology is doing is actually borrowed from the nature itself. We discover it from the ideas from there and then implement them and then make our lives comfortable, no doubt. But while doing so, we must always remember that I'm not going to spoil that environment which has provided me all of this. And for that, in the curriculum, there is a necessity of environment science, environment technology. Whenever we develop anything new, we should see that there are no side effects. In allopathy, we often say that, you take a medicine for curing one particular disease, but it creates some side effect. Whereas in Ayurveda, they say, or in homeopathy, there is no side effect. You take it, you may get cured or you may not, but at least it will not create a problem further to you. So I think these are the values which we have in the ancient system. That is what is known as Indian knowledge system. A division of that is also created by the ministry in AICTE for promoting all of this. But more importantly, as I said again and again, the universities are supposed to be holistic and multidisciplinary. And that is what this policy talks about. And therefore, even if it is a technical college, how a student can be allowed to take a mechanical engineering student music, an electronics student being able to take a course on economics. I think this is what the policy talks about, and how do we empower. So there are two ways that we can do. One is you expand the size of the institution, you add programs of economics specialization, of the music specialization, painting specialization, and expand and then allow students to take those courses. But that may require additional land, additional buildings, and may be very expensive. So how institutions can collaborate, can come together, and in the process, how we are in a position to generate such kind of a holistic environment where students will be in a position to learn different things simultaneously. I think this is possible. And suppose even collaborations are difficult, you are in a remote place, we already have created a platform called Swayam. All of you are aware that Swayam is an indigenously developed MOOC platform where there are more than 3,000 odd courses ranging from arts, commerce, science, engineering, law, medicine, all of them. Of course, more are there from engineering discipline or some of those disciplines of science and economics or arts and philosophy, but others are also being added. So a student can take credits out of this. 20% of the credits was allowed earlier. In the new education policy, more emphasis is given on digital education, technology-based education. So the percentage of credits that can be earned is increased to 40%. The policy also allows what we call multiple entry, multiple exit system. That means a student with some background can come in, may not be directly related with what he wants to learn, and therefore there are some prerequisites which he or she has not done. They can be done in the very first year because you would have done something else. So you come with some preparation. If something is required, like mathematics was necessary for learning engineering and you had done less of mathematics, you take additional courses of mathematics in your first year and become prepared, become one with the level playing field with the rest of the students and continue your journey of excellence. I think this is what is multiple entry. Similarly, students when they go out, at times what happens is they find that this is not being very easy for someone to get through and therefore want to exit. So today exit means you go with empty hand. The new policy allows someone who has completed 2 years with a certificate, with a diploma, with a degree. If you don't complete all 4 years of engineering and go out in 2 years, 3 years, you can earn something. And that one, if it is not holistic and fulfilling to get a job, you may have an exit bridge course so that you prepare a student for employability, prepare a student for becoming an entrepreneur. I think all of these are possibilities which the new education policy has beautifully mentioned. And also to keep those credits into your account, there is an academic bank of credits already developed. Right from school education, once the child enters with a unique ID, whatever courses a student does will get accumulated and you can encash it. Like we give a check earlier and today we go to an ATM and then draw the money, whether you are in India or in Europe, you draw either euro or rupees, or you go to Japan and draw yen. I think that is how you can use your accumulated credits to earn desired whatever qualification requirements of a particular program. And therefore, your topic of digital education and skilling is very dear to all of us. There cannot be education without skilling. I am repeating, and no skilling without education. Both are complementary, both are supplementary, and one without the other will not make you useful. And therefore, universities must try to have in all the programs skilling as embedment. And we all know that we had separate qualification framework. We have curricula which are designed by universities. And there is what is known as National Skill Qualification Framework, which is an expansion from NVEQF in the past. And where there are also multiple entry exit, horizontal mobility, vertical mobility, shown their theoretical model, but never came into existence. And therefore, in the new policy, when we talk about National Higher Education Qualification Framework, I'm sure there will be all kind of connections which are established. A student who is doing vocational program can become an engineer, or he can even go to a law or something else. And similarly, someone learning science suddenly finds difficulty in learning science, may come to a vocational program and become a technician. How does it matter? As long as we value every type of activity that is performed by an individual, which is in the interest of his family and nation, he is able to earn livelihood. I think we should respect that individual. And this is what our ancient philosophy talked about. Therefore, there was nothing like meanness. And that's why children from any type of, although you did mention that the skilling used to happen at home, because a carpenter's son was learning it from the childhood, but therefore he was becoming an expert in carpentry. But carpenter's son was never stopped from learning something else. If you want to become a lawyer, or if that was permitted, we somehow degenerated. I think we have to again come back to the original system of education, where the discovery of oneself, and then from discovering oneself, how do we empower that individual? That is what education is all about, empowerment. And therefore, once you are empowered, you are confident, whether then it is entrepreneurship or employability, both will be natural corollaries. You don't have to struggle for doing that. I think with these words, this policy is fantastic, but all of you have to put in your hard work in implementation. Just theoretical talks like this will not be any usefulness. Dilip ji, you and your entire team, all the participants who are attending this particular conference must take to their heart that in letter and spirit, we will imbibe this and implement it. And we will see the transformation. In 5 years, India will be the country which will be Vishwaguru, and people from all over the world would like to come to India, like during the time of Takshila and Nalanda, to study here in India. Therefore, we don't have to brand a study in India. Automatically, study in India will start happening. I think we have to reach there. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, Chairman, sir. Your enthusiasm and passion has come across so well that, we want to start implementing and doing things like right away. And the winds of change are blowing. And as you rightly said, we hoping, I myself as a parent, I'm hoping that we are able to implement all of the changes that AICTE is bringing along under your leadership. Now, under your gracious presence, sir, we would like to launch our Ditya website. So Ditya is a learning-driven integrated digital school platform that empowers educational organization to prioritize learning above all else. It arms educators and learners with the new age tools and techniques to create and manage immersive learning experience that maximizes learning outcomes. Thank you, sir. We've been honored to have you with us today. Thank you. Moving on, it is with great pleasure that I now welcome all our esteemed speakers. Amongst us, we have today Professor Dilip N. Malkhade, Vice Chancellor, Sant Khadge Baba Amravati University, former advisor, AICTE. Professor R.A. Gupta, Vice Chancellor, Rajasthan Technical University, Kota, ex-professor, MNIT, Jaipur. Dr. Ashwini Kumar Sharma, Vice Chancellor, Symbiosis Skill and Professional University. Dr. G.K. Prabhu, President, Manipal University, Jaipur. Ms. Lakshmi Potluri, Board Member, Trigen Technologies, co-founder of Jabong. Dr. S.S. Manta, former Chairman, AICTE, Chancellor, KL University, AP, Adjunct Professor, NIAS Bangalore, Professor Emeritus, VGTI, Mumbai. Professor Sandeep Sancheti, Vice Chancellor Provost, Marwadi University, Rajkot. Dr. Shamsher, Vice Chancellor, Harcourt Butler Technical University, Kanpur, former Executive Director, Millet, MITI, Government of India. Dr. Ajay Rana, Vice Chancellor, Shobhit University, Meerut. Mr. Ganpati R, Chairman and Non-Executive Director, Trigen Technologies. Mr. Manoj Singh Gaur, Director, IIT Jammu. Dr. Ramana Ramanathan, Chairman, Beachhead Advisors, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, former First Mission Director, Atal Innovation Mission, beg your pardon, former Additional Secretary at Niti Aayog. Mr. Avinash Veshishta, Executive Chairman, Tholons, former Chairman and CEO of Accenture India. Dr. Buddha Chandrasekhar, Chief Coordinating Officer, AICTE. Mr. Dilip Hanumara, CEO and Executive Director, Trigen Technologies. Dr. Swati Majumdar, Pro-Chancellor, Symbiosis Skill and Professional University, Pune, and Symbiosis University of Applied Science, Indore. Principal Director, Symbiosis Open Education Society Director, Symbiosis Center for Distance Learning. Dr. Raj Nehru, Vice Chancellor, Sri Vishwakarma Skill University, Gurugram. Professor Krishnan Balasubramanian, Professor, IIT Madras. Dr. M.K. Surappa, former Director of IIT Ropar, former Dean at IISc, former Vice Chancellor of Anna University. Welcome, everybody. I hope we have a very nice and interactive session. I now introduce you to our moderator, Professor Puneet Sharma. Namaste, Puneet ji. Puneet ji has been the program host at Doordarshan, and he's a registrar and dean academics, Rajdhani Engineering College, Jaipur. We couldn't have found someone better to be our moderator and kickstart the panel discussions. Puneet ji, over to you.
Thank you, Ketki ji. It was great learning session. Hearing again Professor Anil Seshwadhe. His credits, sir.
आप बदले हुए दिख रहे हैं मुझे एकदम याद नहीं पहचान नहीं रहा था मैं
साइड इफेक्ट्स ऑफ कोविड आप तो फुटबॉल आपने काफी खेला और मैंने खाना बहुत खाया It was a great session, going deep rooted to the policy, especially the way you quoted the example of correlation of a person who used music as well as mechanical engineering to make his career. So far, I met a professor who's from Germany. In the daytime, he's a professor in German university, and in the evening, he plays a rock band in the hotels and malls. So we need to break that. Very well said about education. Education starts once you complete your education. Education starts beyond the campuses, boundary walls of the campuses. So we have witnessed the drastic changes under your leadership in last 6-7 years at AICT. People are free to approach AICT to contribute in whatever sense they can do. Policies are so open, and I'm sure in coming times under your leadership, India will get benefited, as well as we may be able to attract students from abroad. So far, our students are traveling, outside of India. But for yoga and the ancient wisdom of related to shastras and medicines, students from fully developed countries, they would like to come back to India. This is what we are looking forward. Through AICT or through whatever means it is possible through you, sir. As well, want to say something, sir? Sir, you are in mute, I think. Sir, you are in mute.
No, I am typing some of the queries which are coming. For the next 10 minutes, I am here. I can answer some of the queries and then quit the program, because I have to join another program. So, fine.
Sir, if you can throw some light more on SWAYAM platform, because many of us are familiar with, and especially the acceptance of credits earned through SWAYAM portal to the regular course. If you can provide some light on that.
Yeah, Punitji, SWAYAM platform was created for anytime learning, anywhere learning, from anyone learning, on any device learning. I think that is the philosophy with which AICT developed it on the instance of the request from the ministry, and it is successful. SWAYAM 2.0 is being now further enhanced to include many other features by IIT Madras. So we are already having, as I said, 3,000 odd courses. UGC AICT through regulation has permitted now 40% of the credits to be earned, and obviously if it is absolutely lab oriented, practical oriented course, you should do it in the physical space, and theoretical classes can be had from out of such kind of platform. That is number one. Number two, each university may not allow all 40%, or 20%. It depends on each university's Senate Academic Council to decide which of the courses floated in the current semester are relevant to their programs, and depending on the interest of the student in the multidisciplinary approach, which I said just now, that student want to take some course on music, and although he is a student of mechanical engineering, he cannot take all music courses and say that I want to become a graduate in mechanical engineering. But there are electives, open electives, and those credits of the music can be encapsulated in the academic, what we call transcript of the university for that particular student. And for that, universities have to make way. What is permitted, each university has to do it. And if that freedom is given to the autonomous colleges under the umbrella of that university, they can do it. So essentially, there must be this give and take which should happen. I'm sure many of you may be aware, UP Technical University, now it is called Abdul Kalam Technical University, has mandatorily asked all first year computer science course to be taken on the MOOC platform. And the examination is conducted for more than several lakh of students simultaneously. It's possible. Today technology enables this. And then each one's marks, if they are transferred to the university, they can be incorporated either in the form of marks if you are still following the mark system. If you are following the grading system, you convert the marks into grades, and then whether it is 4 CGPA system, 10 CGPA system, 8 CGPA system, you can adopt them. I think this is already being allowed and people are not making use of it. My concern is if vice chancellors are attending, if controller of examinations are attending, dean of academics are attending, I think we must not be scared in allowing our students to take them. One of the scare in these minds is one of our faculty member who is a computer science faculty, he may not be up to the mark, and therefore if students take course from someone from IIT Bombay or IIT Madras, what will happen to that faculty? The faculty needs to understand that he has to also challenge and then do better than the faculty of IIT Bombay. And there is possibility. I have seen teachers from some of the ordinary colleges, they can teach even better than IIT faculty. but we have to take it in stride, and we have to put in our efforts. And we should also learn why faculty also cannot take courses. We have allowed, in fact, for promotion scheme, the advanced courses of the SWAYAM, if they have taken, they are treated as equivalent to 1 week faculty development program course. All this enablement we have made. The last part which I want to say, because you are talking about SWAYAM and what all the features, if there are some faculty who have developed a course which is niche area, which is not there on SWAYAM platform, you want to develop a SWAYAM MOOC course, please allow us to provide you an opportunity. But you must be good. Just like that, something to be onboarded is not going to be possible. A 3-minute video, the course content, if it is sent to AICTE, although for engineering domain, it is IIT Madras, for management, it is IIM Bangalore, for open schooling, etc., it is the National Open Schooling, NIOS, and then for general courses, it is IGNOU for open, and for general education, like what UGC colleges, arts, commerce, science, there is CEC and UGC, who are the national coordinators. So in that domain, if you have a course, you can go there. But if something is out of the box, very interesting course, like someone wants to teach sand animation, which is not there in the curriculum of any, but there is a great learning which is possible. Some different kind of a painting which someone knows from the ancient times to today, tribal arts. Someone wants to deliver a course on that, please create a 3-minute video explaining what you want to deliver and also the course content. We will provide opportunity to create a course and onboard onto the platform. This may be taken as a credit course or is not taken by the university as a credit course, but such wealth of information, wealth of knowledge being made available to not only our countrymen, but all over the world. 114 countries of the world are using our SWAYAM platform. It's a feeling of pride. It's almost same like edX platform of the MIT or the Coursera platform of the Stanford University. We are in the same league today. So how do we do it? We can further enhance our capability by crowdsourcing of good quality education content from anywhere.
And most important is all courses are free. You need to pay only for the cost of
examination. Only for examination you have to pay.
Right, sir. So since Dilipji is also there, and through you, we have developed a robust model of innovation challenge, that is hackathon. For last 4 years, more than 4 years, we have been conducting, and last year we could conduct through online mode as well. In what way power of collaboration of industry and academic institutions for innovation can be explored, sir?
I think industry institute collaboration is a must actually. Without that, there is no employability, there is no entrepreneurship possible. And therefore, what AICTE did more than 3.5 years ago in making internship mandatory and allowing students to even take credits out of that has been paying rich dividends on one side. The second one is the hackathons, which we talked about. Another open innovation model, the largest one in the world actually, in terms of numbers. Each year, more than 2-3 lakh students give their brilliant out-of-the-box ideas. We bring them down to about 10,000, and in 50 odd centers, they actually work hard for 36 hours without sleeping and create a product which may not be a finished product, but at least first cut solution for the problem. And then some of the industries, if they support or the government department supports that product or that idea, is taken forward for further implementation. I think this is where industry institute connect, or what we call partnerships, which will start happening. And therefore, the model has expanded today from what just AICTE was doing national level to there are state level hackathons, university level hackathons, and there is a feeding ground which is coming from lower end to higher end. There are students who are participating in several hackathons, creating new products. Some of them convert themselves into startups, and they have started recruiting students rather than seeking employment. These are all spin-off benefits which are going to come. And entire nation as such trying to become innovative. I'm just leading to another issue, which is examination reforms. This is another area which is still not caught up by universities. our university question papers are still based on rote learning, memory-based questions. I'm not questioning that there should be no memory. I don't want our brain to be hollow and empty. There must be a lot of content. Therefore, our ancestors used to make us go through several thousands of shlokas by hearted, because that will create more memory space in the brain. In fact, more you use, more will be created. But not everything need to be remembered, and that is what our question papers unfortunately are. How we make question papers which make you to think, how you make a critical analysis of the data that is available, how using that data analytics you create a solution, how you can be creative, how you can be innovative. I think the question papers have to be set on the basis of the Bloom's taxonomy or higher order thinking, and that is what workshops are being organized continuously. My request to all faculty who really set question papers for their university or colleges must attend this workshop, learn the art of setting question paper. That is an art by itself. It's not easy, because to set a question paper for 3 hours, you may have to struggle 3 days, and then a question paper will come out of that. To teach a course for 1 hour, you have to prepare for 3 hours. I think this golden ratio has to be remembered. Otherwise, just like that I will go to the classroom, or just like that in 5 minutes I will set a question paper, will not work. You can't be innovative in that sense. And therefore, teachers are the professionals who are supposed to be 24/7. A student gets a difficulty at any point in late evening, night, and he wants to call you. Today that facility exists in the form of mobile phone. You must answer to that student. That is where student teacher connect. What we earlier called Gurukula system, where teacher and student had a strong bondage, needs to be created today by using even technology. Why not? So I am expanding what you asked. The question was one, but I have slightly digressed because I have to leave. I'm not giving you
one last question. It's always there is a demand by the industry that the curriculum, what is being taught, is not relevant or it's obsolete. So any plans to rope in the need of industry with the curriculum?
No, we have been always saying that industry bodies or industry personnel must be onboarded into our what we call board of studies, whether in a university senate, and this practice has been followed by several universities. But there is a catch. I'm just mentioning that. That is also very important. My industry friends, if they are attending this kind of a webinar, that will be music to their ears and they will be happy. But the other part which I'm going to say may not be very happy for them, because what happens is, if you get a person from, say, Tata Motors to your curriculum revision, I'm just mentioning the name of the company, don't take it otherwise. If there is a Tata group, I worked in Tata, so they will not mind my saying this, so I'm saying this. They will start insisting on all variety of courses that are related to automotive to be included into the curriculum of mechanical engineering. But a student from mechanical engineering may not go into Tata Motors, but he may take a job in Tata Consultancy Services, Tata Consulting Engineers, or he may take a job in Tata Steel. The requirements there are different from this one. And therefore, everything what I want, my company wants, should be included in the curriculum cannot be done. What we need is general philosophy of how a student has to be industry ready. Those generic things have to be part of that, where that kind of skill sets are required. Some of the software, some of the hardware to be used, some soft skills and life skills training. That is the job of the universities, and that should become the part of the curriculum. But for a specific industry, if something is required, each industry must have their own program of training after the graduates join them. No, we cannot create 100% ready engineers who will start working from day one in their industry, because we have we have taken care of a generic nature where learning to learn or lifelong learning philosophy has to be embedded. And therefore, if he goes to some X company and change the job to the Y company, he must be able to easily transport himself from this to that. Like our trains being changed on the platforms, he must be in a position to do that. And for that, whatever is required, we have to do it. And that is what industry should specify to us, and not say that what I need and my industry needs should be taught. You may float an elective of that nature and select those students for your employment. That's fine. But the entire course itself to be of that nature cannot be done actually. And this limitation of the academic institutions where there is only, either 3-year degree program or 4-year degree program is limitation, and that limitation also should be understood. But a person who is confident, who is capable to learn on his own or on her own, and wherever he or she goes, within a month will adapt, and then will be able to deliver. That is the job of the educational institutions. I think this is what what I wanted to say to the industry.
This is quite appropriate, sir. A sports person is physically fit. His aptitude is there for adopt any kind of sport. Can play anything, whatever is being served, whatever is there. So well said, Professor Sachbudde. Ketki ji, any more thing in the first session?
I had a quick question for Chairman, sir, and this is coming more from a parent perspective, sir. Though we have a lot of academias and everyone, there are a lot of changes which are being proposed. But I saw it with my parent, and I hope I don't become like my parent, wherein, we resist to changes, So what advice would you give us, everybody on this panel, as parents, that how do we overcome this, our age-old mentality, of resistance to change? Because some of the initiatives that AICT is bringing about is really good. I mean, I wish I had those when I was doing engineering. Second year into it, I was like, I don't think this is my cup of tea. I've taken it because my friends were doing it, but I realized I was better at something else. But peer pressure, family pressure, things don't work out at times. But with this, we are fostering culture of change. We are fostering culture of exploration. So how do we encourage parents, to be part of this journey along with the academias?
Ketki, you must see these two movies, Tare Zameen Par as well as Three Idiots. And the answer to the question that you have raised will come automatically to you.
Definitely. But सब मेरे जैसे open-minded भी नहीं होते हैं.
नहीं, उसको बार-बार दिखाना पड़ेगा. दोनों फिल्मों में बहुत ही अच्छा सीखने लायक है और हमको उसको देखना चाहिए. क्योंकि a person, if he is not fit into that, whatever he is not interested in, then I think we are spoiling the life of that individual.
Correct.
The parents have to understand that. Just because in our times we were not given freedom, I will also not given freedom. Will not give freedom. Is not the right attitude, and we will have to keep on convincing. This is what creating awareness, and give always stories of successful individuals who decided on their own. There are engineers and doctors whose children are taking psychology or music as the career, and their parents are supporting. And when they support, how they can excel in life. If such examples are shown, I think people will change. But always change is difficult. Change is permanent, but change is always resisted by all systems, not just in India, but anywhere in the world. So we will have to put in our extra chip, extra effort in order to make and convince our parents. And therefore, a lot of seminars for parents are important, actually, more than students and faculty members. And each faculty member should become a mentor to a set of parents of their institution at least. Have a session with them. Whatever I am doing today with all of you, why don't you all people do with your parents? We used to have teacher-parent meeting in schools. Why not have it in the college also? Invite the parents and say that please give flexibility to your child, and child is or your student is expert in such domain. And if you provide that opportunity, he will excel. And I had recently an example where a 17, 18-year-old student who has written books on cyber security. Can you imagine? And the person is expert. He is able to crack any system. But he said ethically he should not do it. He will not do it. But he is in a position to do that. I think there is a lot of talent underneath. It's the parents who have to support. It is the teachers who have to support. And if you do that, beautiful new India will emerge. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Puneet ji, I have one question for Anil ji before he leaves. It will only take a second. Today, when we look at the culture and the market, if you ask anyone, they will ask a superstar in a sports field, they'll name a cricket star. A movie actor, they will name a superstar. And now even in entrepreneurship, the CEOs of some of the global companies are Indian, so they will name them. But if you ask them a star as a professor or a teacher, they will still struggle. How do we change that culture and start creating stars out of our professors and teachers who can enable all this change?
See, that's why 2 years back we started Best Teacher Award. Vishweshwaraya Best Teacher Award we have started. It's very difficult to find good teachers, I'm telling you. We invited applications and people were not able to apply with all the characteristics which we were looking for. And then finally we could shortlist only 9 out of such a big country with more than 5 lakh technical teachers in our country. Therefore, these are the role models. Each year, whoever is selected, a short video, 3-minute video of what they have done to make a difference in the lives of the students of their college. I think if we put it up, and that's what we are going to start now. So we are getting a short video from each one of them with live examples, and that will motivate others, and some of them will become your stars. And we all know that we always thought Dr. Kalam as one of our stars. Why are you thinking? He was definitely a former president of India, but Dr. Kalam inherently was a teacher. After his laying down the office, he was teaching and taking classes in several universities of India, and his last lecture was in IIM Shillong. When delivering it, he passed away. What a noble death actually while teaching. These are the what we say role models, and we should advertise that more and more. There are many hundreds of them. I'm not saying the same one. So let us be proud of our own profession and keep doing a great service to the nation.
Thank you.
इजाजत दीजिए दूसरा प्रोग्राम जरा बच गए मेरे.
Thank you so much. We are deeply honored that you spared time and you enlightened us. Thank you, sir.
आपने एक बात बढ़िया कही कि every industry must have some.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So we have still 15 minutes to go with the first session, which is taking higher education to grassroots. So till the time we start our first session, I'm finding that Professor Ashwini ji is there, Dr. Samsher ji is there, Dilip Malkhede ji is there, Prabhu Sir, G.K. Prabhu Sir is there. So before we shift to the first session, and Dilip ji is also there. So need of the hour, everyone is saying that now we need to change the mindset from job beggar to a job creator. So, but it is easier said than done. Because so far the purpose of education that has been perceived is earn a quality degree and you are ready to serve a job. So the mindset needs to be changed at parental level first, and then subsequently in the campuses as well. Because so far, parents have a psyche looking forward for a safe job. Safety and security is first. So every one of us is a parent. So the biggest challenge is how to leave this habit of adopting or looking forward for a safe career, safe job, or always safety, and looking forward for explorations and identifying self. So to begin with, Ashwini ji, you are father of 2 young guys, those who are doing brilliant in their career. So to begin with, as a father, as a parent, what are the challenges in front of a parent to leave this safety or safe job or secure job mentality? Sir, you are on mute.
See, Punitji, I think very rightly said that when we have been talking about jobs and employability in the present scenario, when we say that we are a country of more than 135 crore Indians, I think one and the most important thing which now the government of India is also planning, and even we have been talking about, is basically you have to build in, as Dr. Anil Shalbudde very correctly said, that we have to plug in skill and vocational education as a part of whole education system, and whether it is at the level of 6th class, whether it is at the level of 8th class, 10th class, whatever it is, we have to make this vocational education very lubricative and very attractive, so that there is a social stigma attached to the skilling and the low profile jobs. I don't know what is a definition of a low profile job. If I remember correctly, When I was there in US in 1992, I could find a plumber was earning better than a software engineer, frankly speaking. I was doing a coding for a Fox Pro program, and I could find a plumber better dressed than me and getting a better status. So that social stigma which parents and everybody has got in the society, that needs to go away, because job is job, whether you are a plumber, you are an electrician, or you are an engineer or a doctor or a bureaucrat or a teacher. We have to do that part. So this is one important thing. And this is what Dr. Anil Shahbuddin said just now, that we also have to now educate parents. That is very important for all of us, because until unless, the mindset goes away from them that my son is to become engineer. And frankly speaking, I'm an engineer because of my parents only. Because I was the topper of the board, so my parents wanted to go for engineering, so I opted for engineering. Now, this thought process has to go, and very rightly what he said, that we were there in a conference day before yesterday, myself and Shahbuddin sir, and we discussed 3 movies are very much required to be seen by each parent. One movie which he missed out is the Dhamal. We should see Dhamal, where there is enjoyment. 3 Idiots, where there is that you do whatever you want to do. And third one is the Tare Zameen Pe. Give chance to everyone to do whatever he likes to do, where he feels he or she has got a excellence. So this is very important. And that's the reason to bring this awareness among the system. Government of India in NEP 2020 has even allowed now that we need to go for, education and skilling in regional level. That's the basic impact we are trying to bring in that.
Thank you, Ashwini ji. Since Dilip ji is there, I am keen to know, since he is owning a company, I'm sure you might have started with a job first and then shifted to become an entrepreneur. So what made you to break this, safe domain and explore something new? If you can, we have still 10 minutes to go. So all yours.
Thank you, Puneetji. And, in one word, I would say it as restlessness. I was on a job for 15 years. I'm lucky to work at one of the world's leading companies. My 3 main jobs where I was there for more than 5 years were all with the world leading companies. One thing which those organizations encouraged from the beginning is to switch roles every 18 to 24 months. And that became a habit, a muscle memory. It created restlessness to learn and grow. And to a large extent, I would say I'm lucky for that restlessness to drive me to start something of my own. My last job was the world's largest asset manager. When I was able to present to the management of that company and get approval to do the necessary projects, that gave me confidence that I could do this in front of everyone, because these are the leaders that you see them on the TV every day. If I could convince them in their boardroom, which means I can convince any boardroom to give us work. So it naturally led to that. And contrary to most people's beliefs, I think what gave me that ambition or restlessness is growing up in a village. My first 15 years I grew up in a village with less than 3,000 people. That growth, being there, enabled me to observe the nature. Nothing stops in nature. Everything evolves every day. When you clean up your backyard, you find anthills converted to snake homes. And as you were cleaning up, the snakes would come out, they would go somewhere else. Natural evolution, natural things have created that interest in learning. And Dr. Anilji also highlighted, we learn from nature. So true. And today, as we move from rural to urban, we're moving away from those natural systems. We're lucky enough to be in a country where we still have large swaths of our forests intact. Nothing beats the natural mechanism. We live in an environment where we need to understand that environment very well. And I think that should translate even to human generated cultures. And to add more, and also, this has been, I've also heard this over the last few days, over the last few weeks, especially in these conferences, that today, when we look at where people are, especially the younger generation, as 60% of India is less than 30 years old or 35 years old. If you look at the Maslow's pyramid hierarchy of needs, for most of the younger generation today, their basic needs are met by the hard work from their parents. They are no more looking for the job, they are looking for a purpose. The switch from a job, from that safety net of wanting to have a job, to I want to take my ideas, is because they've all have moved up that hierarchy. And second, unlike before, before opening up of the country, we didn't have that many business people. We had people like J.R.D. Tata, but not, there were very few. There were a handful of them. But today, if you look at it, in every industry, we have a leader that anybody can look. And most of these leaders who are leading the world-class companies today also grew up in small villages. And that gives a tremendous amount of confidence to our youth today. So even our curriculum, our academia, our universities, what we teach in the schools, in the colleges, and it will take time for that to reach homes, is for them to become, to encourage their questions, not to say, that's how things are, just follow what I say. Right? So I think it will take a generation or two as we create more and more leaders. It will create a generation or two for that culture to go back to the homes. But I think the schools, starting at a young age, encouraging them to ask the questions. No question is a bad question. The fact that they're asking a question itself should be of tremendous pride. So I think it is that restlessness. And today, all of us need to be, as Dr. Anilji said, even our professors need to be continuous learners. I think that's the key for all of us.
So most of the students, those who want to explore startup activity, usually they have one thing in their mind, that until you are having financially strong background, it's really difficult to look forward for startup. So that's where they drop their idea. They don't explore even their idea. So during your journey to become an entrepreneur, was it that difficult? Because this answer would motivate others to how you arrange the finances to start your own company.
So, Puneetji, the times have changed. Today, look, the cost of capital in India is still expensive compared to the West. But unlike before, the channels have opened up. And if you look at the inflows into the country today, India has one of the largest inflows this year and also projected going forward. What that does is that the capacity to take risk will be easy, because the capital is flowing in from all sources, not only from outside, but also within India. A lot of people are realizing that we have talent that can generate ideas that can be easily marketable. And that inflow of capital will tremendously mitigate the risk. And our founders who are now realizing and who are now able to access those channels of capital are taking that risk. And we should use forums like these and others to promote those channels. If you look at the incubators in India, I'm sure they multiplied multiple times over the last decade, and they will continue to grow. These are the different channels in which the cheaper capital is coming to these founders. And today, even if they work in a big organization, or if they have an idea and take it to a venture capitalist or to any other seed funders, they can still get paid. So the risk, unlike before, where the cost of capital is extremely high, is going down. And availability of that liquidity will what drive more and more entrepreneurs and founders to take that risk.
Thank you, Dilipji, for sharing your own personal journey. And I'm sure during the concurrent viewership, our students would take the advantage of your own experiences. I think it's time to shift to the first session. Thank you for being there, Dilipji, for inaugural session.
Thank
you. Request you again to join us during the fourth session.